Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching NDTV. The National Green Tribunal has directed 53 cities which witnessed decline in air quality to submit a complete report on the contribution of each polluting source and the measures that they've taken to reduce pollution. Now, the tribunal was hearing the issue of air quality decline in different cities across India as reflected in the air quality index maintained by the Central Pollution Control Board. Now, the tribunal went through the reports the states had submitted and they said that they did not fully utilize the funds received under the National Clean Air Programme and also the 15th Finance Commission. Now, the NGT, in fact, has asked all cities to disclose the contribution by each polluting source in terms of identified pollutant as per source apportionment and also progressive reduction on account of measures taken. It has added that a complete report has to be submitted at least 1 week before the next day of hearing, which is the 3rd of May. Last year, NGT asked for a comprehensive plan for the entire NCR to deal with air pollution after observing that some of the measures taken so far had just been knee-jerk reactions. It has also pulled up states for farm fires in the past and also those with large-scale vacancies in Pollution Control Board. But this time, the NGT has gone a step further, asking states to have clear-cut plans not just combat air pollution, but also raise timely resources to do so, given the gravity of the situation. So will this finally get the cities cracking down on addressing the problem of air pollution? That is the question we asked tonight. Joining us on this discussion, Bhavreen Khanduri, who's an environmentalist and also member of My Right to Breathe. We have Dr. G.C. Khilnani, who's a doctor, and also Dr. Anil Gupta, who's a board member of the Central Pollution Control Board. But before that, let me go across to my colleague Vedant, who's been reporting on this issue. Vedant, so what does NGT in its order say and how significant is this observation?
Well, absolutely, Vasa, it's extremely significant and the timing is very significant. As you know, Bhavreen and Dr. Khilnani on your panel would agree, we at NDTV have really been committed to talking about air pollution round the year, which is why the NGT's order not coming at at the peak season of pollution is very significant. Now, very quickly, let me take you through what the NGT says. Two important findings. One is that there is an underutilization of funds allocated and given to various states. And now remember, the NGT also says that there are various cities that have not furnished reports as to what's really happening, and these are the cities where air quality has recorded a significant dip in the past couple of years particularly. Now the data we are looking at is from 2019 to 2023 under the National Clean Air Programme or the NCAP, and the funds allocated based on that. But two important points, Vasudha. One is that the NGT says that the states must not be over dependent on the centre for funds, and secondly it says that the states should evolve their own exchequer solely dedicated to pollution and realize that it's an extremely important problem to tackle, and the states at their level must identify causes of pollution. That is very important because as experts would also tell you that pollution has to be treated at its source level. What are the various sources? Well, vehicular pollution, industrial pollution contribute the most to the air quality crisis in cities like Delhi and even in cities like cities of UP and Bihar. So pollution has to be treated at its source level, and fantastic measures like a smog tower and smog guns will not really make a difference. That is what experts say. Now the NGT, when I spoke to the NGT chairperson as well, he said that we need to look at the micro level. We need to move away from a macro understanding of pollution to a micro understanding, identify root causes and sources, and that awareness ultimately is the key. This is of course a huge judicial intervention because earlier also we have seen the Supreme Court intervene, but this time the NGT has really cracked the whip in a sense, saying that all states and cities, they are also identifying cities that are most problematic in this area, the most vulnerable, and those cities will be will receive special focus and from the state government. So the NGT says identify causes and work around the clock and not just during the peak season of pollution, and a larger understanding of pollution, looking at it from a micro lens and not just a mere macro lens. So that is what the thing is. And my last point, Vasudha, that when I was going through the data, there's not just a stark difference between the funds utilized and the funds given, but the funds allocated and the funds given as well. So there was some portion of funds that was earmarked and allocated that was not given. So there are multiple layers that that we need to examine. But of course, the basic point is that we need to look at it round the clock and identify sources of pollution.
Vedant, also help us understand what comes next, because now the hearing is going to be on 3rd of May and the states have been asked to submit reports. What can the states do and how legally binding is this, and how, what kind of pressure are states on to sort of, what kind of obligation do the states have to fulfill the NGT's mandate?
Well, remember, this is not the first time, Vasudha, that the NGT has intervened. The National Green Tribunal has time and again pulled up various states, Delhi particularly, multiple times in the past, saying that, you have to do something about, the school-going kids, that they go to schools in such air quality where you have, the PM 2.5 almost 80 to 100 times the safe level. So, of course, those observations have been made by the National Green Tribunal. But, of course, the first thing that now these particular cities, a charter of cities that the National Green Tribunal has prepared, these cities have to furnish their reports. Where are they spending the money that is being allocated to them or that is being given to them finally, the money that has been released by the centre? Where is that money going? Because remember, we had also done a story a couple of months back, in fact almost a year back, looking at how most of the money that the governments are spending are in the wrong direction. For example, Delhi, there was a huge amount of money that was spent on these big smog towers. One of them is Anand Vihar, one of them very close to our office in South Delhi as well. So these smog towers really do nothing. Experts have time and again said that smog towers cannot clean up the air of a city like Delhi. But still the governments continue to sort of, allocate money to resources like smog towers, smog guns, and they really don't do anything. So of course, the states first have to furnish their reports. How much funds did they utilize? Where did they utilize them? And the average rate of utilization is abysmally low. It's less than 40%. So of course, it is a step in the right direction. But of course, it has been, we've seen in the past as well that courts have pulled up states, but nothing really has happened.
Right. Thank you, Vedant, for joining us with those details. NGT cracking the whip there on states. Let me go across to Dr. Gupta first. Dr. Gupta, Centre's ambitious attempt to improve air quality in some of India's most polluted cities suggests that, a majority of Indian cities are far from making any significant progress. Now, a recent study that I was going through says 49 cities whose particulate matter numbers were consistently available for 5 years, 27 cities showed a decline in PM 2.5, which is considered the most dangerous grade of pollutant, while only 4 had met or exceeded the targeted decline. So clearly, some of India's biggest cities are also reporting marginal declines or even increasing pollution loads. In January 2024, only 32 Indian cities had clean air, while Delhi, of course, was the most polluted. So now this was a research done by Centre for Research on Energy and Clean Air. In that context, sir, how do you look at the latest move by NGT?
Yeah, good evening to you and all the viewers. The order given by NGT is a welcome step. I always say that the Pollution Control Board and Pollution Control Committee, they are the regulator. It is not the only job of the State Pollution Board to control the pollution. They only give the guidelines, they do the studies, they tell you the source of the pollution. It is the duty of the state government or the civic agencies to control the pollution. Let me give detailed about this. Air quality index has 8 parameters. They are PM 2.5, PM 10, ozone, nitrous, sulfur, carbon monoxide, lead and ammonia. Particularly if I take the example of Delhi, except PM 2.5 and PM 10, the rest of the 6 parameters remain in satisfactory level throughout the year. That shows that the vehicular pollution or industrial pollution is within the limit. Normally for a air quality index, we have a range of 0 to 50 as a good, 51 to 100 as a satisfactory, 101 to 200 moderate, 201 to 30 poor, 301 to 400 very poor, and 401 to 500 severe. I always say, if during the non-winter season, if our AQI is less than 100, then only during when some weather condition is there in the winters and all that, you are able to achieve 200.
Right.
But what is happening, that air quality index of Delhi and of the major cities is normally roughly 200 all over the year.
Right.
That shows the contribution of PM 2.5 and PM 10 normally remains high. Let me give you an example. See, the central government through NCAP, National Clean Air Program,
right,
they do some fundings. And, like in the petrol pumps, we have the vapor recovery systems, like we have the lead-free petrol.
Right.
We reduce the sulfur. We are able to reduce the carbon by the fitting of the engine is like this, that we are able to reduce this carbon monoxide. So 6 parameters we are able to achieve in a limit conditions. But
let me take this question to Bhavreen. That's an important point that Dr. Gupta is making.
Let me just complete, if you allow me 1 minute. 1 minute.
Yes, sir.
The PM 2.5 and PM 10, it is a civic problem. Mostly PM 2.5 is from the road dust,
yes,
or from the fossil burning, stubble burning, and sometimes the industrial. You can do stickness on the industries.
Right.
But, for example, Delhi, we have a network of 28,000 kilometers of the road. You go everywhere, you will find the potholes, you will find the bad roads, you will find the dust. And see, unless until, I always say, you need to have the mass cleaning of the city, at least for one. And it is not a one-day job. For a pollution, I always say, to keep a good environment, you need to have a one-year plan.
So consistent efforts are what is required. Bhavreen, see, 5 years after the National Clean Air Program was launched in 2019, Delhi, has still failed to meet its 2024 target of bringing down the annual, PM 2.5 and also PM 10 concentrations by at least 30%. Now, Delhi is part of 131 cities that did not attain targets for improving air quality. And this is something that you've also been pointing out. And we've seen that over 9,000 crore have been released by the center under NCAP to help these cities meet their targets. Now, explain to us, why are cities failing to meet their targets, and also, this underutilization of funds?
Yes, Vasudha. So, mostly all the points have been picked up very well by Vedant and Dr. Gupta. I'll just come to the point, seeing the constraint on the timing, that, now, you said a figure, an aggregate figure, but Delhi has now been allotted only 2.5% of the funds, which is ridiculous. The most polluted city probably of the world, capital of the world, has got only 43 crores or something like that. So obviously there is, there seems to be no intent in that sense. Now, when we're talking of, micro, level of work, the systemic changes come from the courts and from the policymakers, the politicians. But it is at the micro level, what Vedant mentioned, that is where the local governance plays a role. And unfortunately, that is what needs to be tackled, and, in a way, it has to be criminalized now. The penalties and all that, the penalization that's happening all the time, it's not going to help. After all, it's all taxpayers' money that goes in, and so no one is bothered. After all, our children are now, every third child in the city has damaged lungs, or even in other cities, the studies are shown that we are going to live, our children will live much lesser number of years. So how is it that we allow this to happen? Why are these officers not being, prosecuted? Why are the pollution boards still have vacant posts? These are the kind of, actions that are needed. The studies are there. I mean, with all due respect to the court, and it's a welcome, like Dr. Gupta said, it's very welcome. But first of all, in 2 or 3 months, there cannot be any source, appropriate studies possible. They need time, and many studies are there. The sources and all. Every city will have, every area will have different sources that need to be monitored and taken care of, and which pretty much is known. But say, I'll give you an example in a layman's language, considering I'm a citizen and speaking as a, a parent around my area. I suddenly come in the evening today, the trees are all hacked in the name of pruning. Then on the other side, there is a bridge that is broken. This is a posh locality of Delhi, which has been broken for the last 4 months. So there are traffic jams continuously every single day. Now, why are these local authorities not taking action or taking wrong actions like
Right.
cutting trees every hour? We are losing 5 trees in the city. Waste management is absolutely, the solid waste management bylaws are in a mess. Every colony
Right.
that you go to, they have the same problems. The citizens and the residents are coming forward, spending their energy, time, resources, but yet we don't achieve it because it's the biggest violators are our own authorities.
Right. So
So
the
this
concern is
what the seriousness
also
will
around
have
our
to come.
health. Dr. Khildeni, like Ms. Bhavreen is also pointing out, health is an important factor. And, we've used words and phrases like gas chambers and slow murders to sort of describe a city because, it's also been a victim of pollution. But from Chandigarh to Chennai to Mangaluru to Ahmedabad, there are several examples, to improve air. And there are several, I think, cities which need this improvement of air and water quality. So what is clearly needed, like all of you have been pointing out, is also a mindset shift. But tell us, how are cities rapidly growing, and what is the price that one has to pay for this in terms of health? What is the kind of impact does this have on the health, especially of the working class population, that may not really have resources to afford quality medical care?
Vasudha, thank you very much. But one thing good has happened, that the lens from Delhi, Kanpur, Kolkata has gone to the whole country. And we know that Chicago study has said that average Indian is losing 5.3 years of life. That is one thing. Another thing is that I'm sure all of us agree that in city of Delhi and other cities also, people are coughing after the trivial illness. And we actually, pulmonologists and doctors, finding it helpless, ultimately giving them corticosteroids and so on and so forth. But that's not one thing. It's not a question of 5.3 years. It is the quality of life. It is the way we live, the way we sleep, the way our brains are being polluted with bad air. So our health is in a severe jeopardy. Previously, the people were looking at only Delhi people as a very people living in a very bad quality air. But today we know that all the cities. Another thing I want to point out that the Delhi pollution is not generated in Delhi only. It comes from 300, 500 kilometers around Delhi. Only thing that we have a disadvantage of geographical position. That Delhi and NCR is subjected to that. As a
Right.
pulmonologist, I can tell you that the viral infections, which generally known to cause 3 to 5 days of illness, today we are seeing severe pneumonias, we are seeing deaths in the elderly people, we are seeing prolonged illnesses because of that. And of course, we know the studies are there. The
Right.
Dr. Pandey study has shown that there is 25% increase in the emergency visits with COPD, asthma, and
Right.
heart attacks. The mortality rises with each 10 microgram of PM. And unfortunately, I don't agree with the first speaker who said that the Delhi pollution is somewhat in control as far as the PM,
Okay.
other
Okay, we'll have to take
parameters.
that offline, sir. Thank you all of you for joining us on this very important discussion on countering air pollution. NGT has cracked the whip and has asked 53 polluting cities to have a plan in place in 90 days.